I'm, first of all, extraordinarily happy to meet entrepreneurs. To me, as you can imagine from Schumpeter's, I come from the Austrian and the, the liberal stream of economic thought, in which the entrepreneur is really the driver of the entire economy. And without your initiative, nothing can ever happen to India. Okay, so India is 100% dependent on entrepreneurship, and our party is fully committed to making everybody an entrepreneur. Self-employment rather than government employment. As second point I noted was JRD Tata. As far as I can remember, he has been my hero, the only Indian industrialist whom I respect. He also was the only industrialist of India to fund the Swatantra Party. Some of you may remember, I can see some of you may have the memory of Rajaji, who fought the socialism of Nehru and started a party which was funded by JRD Tata. And he also gave an office to a foundation which was later on used till the very end. I went to Bombay and saw that the Freedom, I forget the full name of the foundation, but where S.V. Raju, some of you might remember, might know, was running a magazine called Freedom First, on which I contributed a number of articles. I left the IS after 18 years of working. I resigned. It is not a practical thing for anyone with integrity and with a vision for the country to work in the IS. I am against the IS. I have written a lot against the IS in newspapers, in the Times of India, in News 18, and so on. I believe in a total reform of governance. Today's topic, I'm starting off with this, background context. I will talk about the topic, and then I'll come out with the broader reforms that are necessary. We are trying to understand today what is the cause of the extraordinarily high petrol prices. Today, 91 rupees or almost 92 rupees. Today I saw in the roadside. So I have said one thing for the last 20 years, more than 20 years now. Any problem, and I will use the word in capital A and Y, is directly attributable to India's socialist model. The socialist model percolates not just the policy which was liberalized for industry, the industry policy. It does not percolate only that is the license Raj. It percolates the governance system. Till today, our governance system is fully socialist. And it also percolates the policy making idea that people are, who have got no background in policy making, are making policy for us because they are paid without regard to their ability. And we have actually got the worst of all models in the world. The colonial models of IS and all that stuff, and socialist models. The combination has led to the petrol price situation. I'll come to that. I'll explain that. Now, we know that the good thing of, however, because of the liberalization of 1991, the overall economy has performed reasonably well for potentially almost 20 years, more than 20 years. It started after 1991, the reforms picked up and started giving results end of 90s. So now it's almost 20 years. We are going at a good rate, 5%, 6%, 8%, and so on. And given the modern revised calculation, even up to 10% in the last quarter, which is fantastic. But that is not due to any other reform but the 1991 reforms and the very small extra reforms that came from that. First, the fall of the rupee. What is the problem with this business of Indian rupee? Why are we having continuous fall? So if you look back at the data, it is about 400 times the loss of purchasing power since independence. That was my calculation of 2 years ago. Probably now it's 425 times, because it's a compounding effect. So the loss of purchasing power of the rupee has been astonishing. But that does not mean other currencies did not fall. US dollar has fallen 100 times in value since 1913. So all central bank currencies fall in value. It is a guaranteed requirement for them because of inflation. They actually target inflation and all that. So then every time it is falling 2% or 10%, whatever. Second, Indian rupee has fallen nearly 20 times against the major currencies in the last 70 years. So I was looking at data with the dollar. US dollar was less than 4 rupees, 3.7 or something in 1947, and today is 73 rupees, okay, roughly. So we are talking of a loss of 20 times there, roughly, value. So why is the rupee falling so much? I think the answer that I think is so obvious. So I have explained in my book, Breaking Free of Nehru, which is available for free of cost. I've actually made sure it's available. It is published by Anthem Press. Then I got the book back and I put it on the internet. But the point is that our government expenditures, particularly the commanding heights model, has basically meant that we have the banks, we are recapitalizing all the time. We are basically creating deficit budgets one after the other, year after year, year after year. There is no limit, no respite. Where does this money come from? Obviously, the rupee falls. So the rupee fall is very clear on that regard. Second was that our relative share. So remember, the rupee value in terms of the exchange rate is different from the rupee value, which is in terms of inflation. So the fact that we have fallen 20 times, with regard to faster than other currencies of the world. We have fallen 20 times faster in a way than US dollar has fallen. They also have been falling, but we have fallen 20 times faster. That is because the demand for the rupee in the Indian market, in the international market, is very relatively low. We have a huge demand for foreign currency, but they have a very relatively low demand for it. And one of the key reasons that we are not a convertible currency. Why are we not convertible even till today? It's a bit of a shock and a bit of a serious problem. Why are we supposed not to have a convertible currency? Because everybody is scared of a massive capital flight. The moment you make it fully convertible on the the current account, you're going to see the thing, the money fly. And so what we are seeing is that the politicians still not happy, not comfortable with, even though we have hundreds of billions of dollars of reserves, not comfortable in making a fully convertible currency. So if it was fully convertible, there would be at least some demand in the forex exchange markets. Those like the 6 top currency, there'll be some demand for the rupee. But today nobody wants rupee. Okay, so here's the real problem, that we have fallen so fast. Now, this is all essentially the model of socialism. So the fact that the trade, we were against free trade. We have put restrictions on trade. We have put restrictions on agricultural trade. We are continuously, laggards in terms of free trade. And without the free trade option, without the export option, the import option, and by the way, this reminds me of the Arthashastra, in which he is the first economist in the world, Chanakya or Kautilya, whatever. Sanjay has a view that he's Kautilya, not Chanakya. Doesn't matter. Arthashastra, the author, basically advocates imports as the priority for the king. And he says that is why how countries progress. That is a very deep insight. But in India, imports are not considered valuable. Actually, imports are frowned upon in India. Imports are actually input to what you can send outside. Now we have made it harder and harder to do imports. Tariffs are still quite high in some cases. Tariff on petrol effectively is 100%. So if you think about what we are doing, is importing a massive thing on petrol. On socialism, there's simply no doubt that this model, I use 2 examples, and I'm sure this is not news to you. I'll give one example is Cuba and Singapore. Same year, 1959. I was born 1959. Cuba, Fidel Castro took over Cuba in 59, and Lee Kuan Yew took over Singapore in 59. Interestingly. I mean, that's curious to me. That was my year of birth. But the point of what just happens is that Singapore was much poorer than Cuba at that time. And today it is, what did I say? I found the data is 9 times wealthier per capita than Cuba. That means it has grown It was much lower. I didn't get time to find the exact number, but probably it has grown 15 times more than Cuba. Why? You know very well. Lee Kuan Yew and J.R.D. Tata would have, gone along very well together. Gurcharan Das wrote in his book, India Unbound, he met J.R.D. Tata. J.R.D. Tata told him about Nehru, what Nehru told J.R.D. Tata, that Nehru thought that profit is a very bad word, a dirty word to be precise. And at the same time, I have found speeches of Lee Kuan Yew on YouTube where he is lambasting the socialists of Singapore who are arguing against profit, because socialists don't like profit. Okay, they are arguing. And what is this Lee Kuan Yew guy telling them? He is scolding them and lambasting them and saying, you are going to destroy Singapore. Profit is the essential foundation of a successful society. How can you even think of this kind of thing? And so socialists were crushed. He crushed the socialists effectively. And I won't go into the politics of it, but Singapore was lucky to have a man like him with vision who said profit is the critical requirement of a successful society. Now, why am I saying this? Because that explains everything. So almost everything I talk about, the fall in the rupee, I'm just talking about, because it has an impact on the current price. You know how suddenly it's happening. And the second example I always give is North Korea and South Korea. That is something else. But that is something so obvious, nobody pays attention. Actually, the same example, basically. But in this case, it's much more fascinating. Fidel Castro, the hero of the socialists, and they put this picture and whatnot. The U.S. economy is booming under Trump, so money is flowing back. And that is one of the big drivers of the fall in the Indian rupee. And Indian rupee India is considered risky, despite all the hype about Mr. Modi. It is considered quite risky among the developing countries. Therefore, the money is flowing back. Now, that is not, the fact that the money is flowing back, I would say, is partly the responsibility of the government. But the bigger picture, let's not forget, the bigger picture is that the same policies that basically disrupted Indian economy for 70 years are continuing even today. And I can list them, but I don't have time, and I don't think you need to know. You know everything. Those policies are harming all of you on a daily basis. Okay. When the Modi government came in, therefore, it had the great luxury of getting very cheap oil into the country. And it also had a very interesting situation, which is good for the taxing, the tax department, obviously, that, hey, people have got used to paying so much for petrol. Petrol was still 60, 70 rupees in those days. And so people got used to paying that much money. So why not, why pass on the savings to them? Keep increasing the taxation. So they kept doing that. And so the Indian consumer did not get any of the benefit of the drop in oil prices for the last 3 years. So oil prices in Australia, I live in Australia, we got the direct benefit because it's totally free market, right? And so we got the direct benefit of the fall in oil prices. Not we means consumers, but businesses. Employment benefited, production benefited, because petrol is such a critical part of an economy. Anyway, India did not get that benefit, and so that's a different issue. The other point that has now come up at this is why the Pincer movement is coming. The Pincer movement, one is the fall in the Indian rupee, and the second is the sudden increase back to the oil. It's not come to $100. It is still only $80. Imagine what will happen if it goes to $80 under the circumstances. If the petrol prices out there will be 110 rupees. So we are talking of a very significant issue now, where the benefits that Modi government got as a free ride for the first 3 years, that's over. And now both factors are coming into play. The money, the rupee investment in India is running out of India. Capital is going back to USA. At the same time, the oil prices are rising back to not anywhere close to $100, but they could.